When you think of the KKK, you usually will think of these ghost-like figures with long pointy hats who hate people of color, specifically black people. But the KKK actually has a deeper and more established history when it comes to organized hate and terrorism to not only black people and people of color, but also religious hate. In this episode of the Historians Podcast, we'll dive deeper into the history, expansion, and motives behind the sinister cult we know today as the Ku Klux Klan.
The KKK, often referred to as the Ku Klux Klan, is an organized white supremacist hate group formed on December 24th of 1865 in Tennessee. The KKK is often known mainly in America and is believed to have been prominent in only America. Although they were the most successful in finding members in America, they also had their members all over the world, in places such as our own country of Canada. So what really was the motive of the KKK in Canada, and how did they affect our country? Many people believe that the KKK is just a hate group to black people or people of color, but the truth is that they're a white supremacist hate group, which means that they hate anyone or anything that does not fall into the white Anglo-Saxon categories. They hated Jews, Asians, blacks, religious factors, and others that, such as the difference in political views, that they believe purged the purity of the Anglo-Saxon race. They made their debut in Canada during the 1920s and 30s, and had a huge deal of success in Saskatchewan. Since there was not many black Canadians at the time, they latched onto the hate of the Roman Catholic religion, claiming that it went against the values of the Anglo-Saxon race. Looking from an historical perspective, the KKK has always latched onto many extremist beliefs, such as Nazism during its rise, because they're a very far right-wing advocating group. As expected, the support of Nazism outlawed the members of the KKK in the West, and ultimately led to the temporary disbanding of the group until the 1950s and 60s, when they took advantage of the civil rights movement to integrate themselves back into the society. The support of these Nazi ideals deemed them the title of the neo-Nazis, meaning new Nazis, because of their overwhelming pride in the Anglo-Saxon race and their utmost efforts to keep them pure and the effort to exterminate other races to do so. Of course, while the support of the Nazi ideals outlawed them during and after the war, when the civil rights movements were uprising later in the 1950s and 60s, they used this opportunity to fuel hatred and say that the black people are trying to rebel against the rules of the white society. This introduced them back onto the stage of society.
Thanks, Jaden. Now that we know what the KKK is and what they're like, why don't we learn from this group looking at it in a modern lens? Well, as Jaden mentioned earlier, the KKK was an organized white supremacist hate group that came from Tennessee in 1865. Some of the ideas of this group still remain in a few people today, whether it be here or the States. Looking at this group in hindsight, we can see that they are extremists to say the least. They had ceremonies where they burned the cross and tortured black people by hanging them on that burning cross. The KKK members wore white robes with a pointy white hat that only had holes for their eyes. As was also explained, the KKK, in addition to hating certain races, like black people and Asian people, also hated several religions. For example, they hated Jews, Catholic people, and just about anything that isn't Anglo-Saxon. Now that we understand who they are and what they stand for, we can try and learn things from the KKK so something like this doesn't happen again. There are obvious things which we can take away from this group, like that we shouldn't be racist or that we shouldn't hate people for their differences. All of this is obvious, but I think we should dig deeper into the twisted minds of the KKK members. Let's figure out how this group came to be and why they get so mad at other racial groups. The KKK, first of all, believed in white supremacy. This means that they believe that the white race is superior to all other races. In addition to this, they also believed that slavery was a good thing. The KKK first became a thing after the American Civil War. These people in the group wanted America to be the way it was before, and slaves were a big part of that. The KKK wanted to intimidate black people and try and put them back where they were before they got their rights. Before the American Civil War, black people heavily relied on white people for their wealth. And that is the thing the KKK stood for. The KKK had a lot of these views because they feared the change that would come with the American Civil War ending and black people slowly but surely gaining their rights. Now that we know what the Ku Klux Klan stood for and why, let's try and learn from their mistakes. The KKK feared change, which, in a world where ideologies change at the speed of light, we need to embrace change. We also have to try new things and include everyone. This way, the world is inclusive to everyone, and everyone can learn from each other. With that, I'll pass you on to Michael, and we will close out this podcast.
With all that being said, thanks for joining us on this episode of the Historians Podcast. Today, we learned about the KKK's history and motives in Canada, and we talked about how they used their status to oppress others and spread fear. We learned how they spread hate beyond race, targeting opposing religions to maintain their idea of white supremacy, going as far as holding cross burnings and lynchings. Understanding their hate helped us to better understand their viewpoint and showed us how to avoid repeating the same actions today. Even though the KKK is significantly smaller now, their ideology can still be found through hate crimes spanning all across the world. It's important to learn and be aware. The KKK feared change and progress. It's crucial to embrace change and promote inclusivity to prevent history from repeating itself. We hope you found this episode useful. If you enjoyed it, remember to subscribe and share it with your friends. Thanks for listening. Stay informed, stay aware, and work for a better world.